There was a time when no one imagined that two totally opposite universes could coexist in a crossover. That is, Disney movies and Final Fantasy games. But in the end, the opposite happened, and such cohabitation turned out to be so comfortable that would be an almost perfect resemblance. One day, Tetsuya Nomura was talking to some executive at Squaresoft, now Square Enix, about how great it would be to make an RPG, but with the freedom of Super Mario 64. Then it occurred to them that the only thing that could compete with Mario in popularity were Disney characters. Thus was born the idea of using Disney characters with action RPG mechanics. They liked the idea quite a lot and got in touch with the American company. But this idea was far from materializing. On one hand, Square wanted Mickey Mouse to be the game's protagonist, but Disney wanted Donald Duck. How strange. Disney pushing Mickey to second place. I suppose they'd gotten tired of the mouse. And Nomura didn't want either of them, so they sought a middle ground. Each character would be the protagonist of each story told, so that no one would be relegated to second place. Thus, he created a group of characters who could be the protagonists, but who would interact with the characters from each movie, turned into worlds, where the player could focus more on the gameplay and the mini stories told throughout the game than on a single story where the protagonist overshadows the presence of the other characters. And from that idea, involving one American metaverse with another metaverse, a reality was created where both universes coexist, Kingdom Hearts. The game focuses on Sora, a 14-year-old boy who spent his time with his friends on Destiny Islands, a paradisiacal place where his biggest concern is whether the nearest palm tree has coconuts. But like all children have a dream, this is it. Sora and his friends, Riku and Kairi, want to know what more exists beyond what their eyes can see. And as usual, Sora and Riku are rivals and friends. I know there's always competition in friendships, but this is a very Japanese cliché. What follows is that Riku gets manipulated by a dark force, turns evil, and finally regains his sanity. I'd better shut up, lest the other cliches come out, like the friend fight that ends in reconciliation, as happens in cartoons. Anyway, to this carnival of cliches is added a love triangle starring Kairi. Sora and Riku are in love with her, doing everything to protect her. They plan to go out in a boat to discover the immensity that surrounds them. How beautiful innocence is, thinking that with a boat made of sticks you can travel beyond your own planet, since they believe their island is imprisoning their dreams. So that the island doesn't feel deserted, it is also visited by 3 Final Fantasy characters. At some point, Sora starts hallucinating about shadows, which we have to defeat. All this is presented as a tutorial, and at some point we are given a choice between a sword, a magic staff, and a shield. This is so the player can adapt to their playstyle. You can only choose 2. The sword gives you better physical attack, the shield better defense and more HP, and magic more MP and better magical attack. Truth be told, I didn't feel that this made a difference in any of the parameters, especially because during the game you can find items that increase these stats, and besides, when you level up they increase anyway. But at least they had the consideration to include the choice of your own playstyle. As the story progresses, the real world begins to be invaded by shadows, to the point of consuming the planet. During that time, Riku starts talking only crazy ideas, turning him into a Sephiroth clone. Don't believe me? Just look. Light eyes and hair, and pure madness runs through his head. Sora faces a monster called Darkseid, which he cannot defeat, but he cannot run from it either. At that moment, he acquires a weapon called the Keyblade, with which he can fight his aggressors to protect his friends, and it has the virtue of opening the light that exists in the worlds. But before he can get comfortable with his new weapon, the Earth is destroyed by darkness, scattering the inhabitants of that planet to other celestial bodies. Sora wakes up in a world called Traverse Town, where he runs into Pluto, who is King Mickey's dog, as if he needed more arrogance. Now, they've made him a king. We don't see him again until the end of the game. It's a very strange situation. Donald and Goofy set out on their adventure because of the dog, and he was guiding them. But when they run into Sora, they completely forget about Pluto and only remember him at the end of the game. I suppose he was the one doing the legwork across the universe. Sora starts walking and runs into a familiar face. Squall. Leon. Seriously, why is Squall called Leon here? His full name is Squall Leon Hart. Maybe that's what Squaresoft affectionately calls him, but besides that, his name is Squall. I complain about this because if you got used to his name in FF8, you'll be saying the same thing I am. Leon Cedo brings Sora up to speed, telling him that what he fought were creatures called heartless, literally without a heart. Lacking one, they need to consume those of people and thus become stronger. Leonido also has the attitude we all love about him, gruff clown. Throughout the town, Donald and Goofy are looking for an errand assigned to them by the king, to find a Keyblade bearer, who conveniently is Sora. On the other hand, our young protagonist has his own mission, to find his lost friends. This makes me think that they don't have a family. I mean, his planet just exploded. Maybe his parents or guardians must be wandering around somewhere, but not a bit of interest on that part. This leads me to deduce that he doesn't care about his relatives in the slightest. At the very least, so they could sign a permission slip for him to go on a field trip, where they suffer from the same fetish Disney has of making orphans of the characters in their stories. If you ask me, I stick with the second option. After going around in circles 20,000 times, this trio finally runs into each other, thus beginning the adventures of this mismatched group composed of Sora, the knight, Donald, the magician, and Goofy, the squire. And this group of heroes could not miss the scribe, in charge of narrating your adventures, embodied in the form of Jiminy Cricket, who will not only keep a record of what happens, but also a small profile of every character you meet and every collectible in the game. The game is an action RPG, or, as I like to call it, a platformer with stats. You'll be jumping from one side to the other all the time, where each combat takes place in the same environment. No cutting gameplay with transitions. Here the enemies appear at any time on the screen. Senseless question, how is Sora going to go low? I say this because you only take 3 steps, and that's enough for the room to get clogged with Heartless. For combat, we select a command from our menu at the bottom left, and to activate it we press X. You do this while enemies chase you through the level, which prevents combat from being interrupted. The mechanics are good, fast, and dynamic. At no time in battle will there be the courtesy of waiting for you to perform your attack like in normal RPGs. Here, every second is crucial, and on many occasions it is vital to make split-second decisions to obtain victory. This is more noticeable with some bosses. Also, with Circle we can jump, which results in you being able to attack enemies from different angles, from the front, from the side, from behind, or by dropping on them from the sky with a rain of blows. To perform physical attacks, you need to highlight the attack option and press X several times to perform combos. Another command is Magic, which can be selected in 2 ways. The first is by highlighting the Magic box, which opens the full list of your spells, each with a magic point cost. The second way, which you must master because it will make you more efficient in combat, is by pressing the L1 button. This opens a menu where 3 buttons each have an assigned spell, which you can choose in the pause menu to map the 3 spells you use most or need. Below we find the item option, where we have limited space to arrange our potions and ethers to recover HP and MP. Both magic and items can only be arranged when we are not in combat, which is a double-edged sword. On one hand, this allows combat to be dynamic and fast, and it makes fights more difficult, providing challenge. On the other hand, if you run into a tough enemy and haven't arranged your things well, it will most likely kill you, so it becomes a trial and error situation at times, especially with bosses. In the last slot, you can assign a special ability, which is obtained by leveling up, but you have to spend AP ability points to activate them in combat. They consume MP. A very useful ability is Guard. It is activated whenever you want with the square button. It helps you repel an enemy's attack. Plus, when you do it, you get experience points, so you'll have to learn to use it to level up faster. Being a 3D game, you have the comfort of adjusting your camera at will, but this is done with the L2 and our 2 buttons, not with the right stick, which we're used to. This causes you to involuntarily try to adjust the screen with that method, which is already standard in games. It's just monkeying around, especially with bosses. Therefore, you can easily lose your target. To compensate, there is an auto-lock button activated with R1, fixing the camera to the nearest target, allowing you to change targets with L2 and R2. It's very important to use it, because besides being a great help to lock onto a target, when an enemy has multiple hit points, you can select them at will, so that you only hit the part you want of the weak point. When you defeat an enemy, you get experience points that serve to level up. These are granted to each character individually, but enemies also drop spheres of different colors. Green ones heal you. Transparent blue ones restore MP. Blue and yellow spheres are the game's currency called money, and a round chest contains an item, either to heal or to synthesize items with the Mogles. These spheres can be picked up by any character in your group, so sometimes you have to let them grab them, especially if they have very low health and the fight is still ongoing. Items that can be bought and synthesized are only available in Traverse Town. And here's the problem. At the beginning of the game, to travel between worlds, you have to use your Gumi ship and go through a rail shooter segment, which greatly lengthens the game, besides becoming very boring and with nothing to do there. You have to keep making pilgrimages constantly to stock up on items for your adventure, which is tiring and quite annoying. But as you progress through the game, you can automatically transport yourself to previously visited worlds without having to kill those crappy little ships. Personally, I don't like this mechanic. I think it's a waste of time. Not only is it boring, but you have to do it so many times that it borders on frustrating, because to discover a new world you have to go through the little ship on rails, dodging everything, and the only thing you can do is shoot and move. And I know that with Sid you can modify and customize your ship, but even so, it's not much motivation. A detail you might overlook, but in my case it remains annoying. What takes the cake are the worlds. Each one is inspired by a Disney movie. Not only are they well adapted, but they're also fantastic. It's great to be able to interact with Aladdin and then with Hercules without losing the essence that the game conveys. The worlds are Wonderland, based on Alice in Wonderland, where the Queen of Hearts wants to cut off her head because someone stole her heart, and you have to prove her innocence. The Colosseum, inspired by Hercules, where you test your courage to be a hero, fighting in tournaments and also foiling Hades' plans. Deep Jungle, set in Tarzan. Clayton tries to find a place where the gorillas nest, so you have to foil his plans with the man who grew up like an ape. Agrabah, where Jafar seeks more than power, taking Princess Jasmine, traveling to the Cave of Wonders, helped by Aladdin, the witty genie, Abu, and the magic carpet. Monstro's Interior, the whale that has swallowed Pinocchio, who goes astray thanks to Riku's influence, where we learn that the way to deworm a whale is with a good, solid knock to the head. Halloween Town, where Jack Skellington has an infallible plan for this Halloween, which includes using Heartless for his festivities. Nothing can go wrong, right? And Oogie Boogie will stick his sack in because of the envy he feels for the king of this planet. What I didn't understand is why they didn't leave Oogie Boogie in his final form. Just look at him. He's huge, and all he does is move his little hand. The only thing they had to do was step away and put up a sign, "Do not approach within 2 meters, and do not feed him." He was no longer a danger, really, but you had to break the black spheres around his body. Atlantica, where we live under the sea, where Ursula wants to take over Neptune's kingdom, and Princess Ariel and a topless Sora have to stop her, even when she becomes gigantic. It's funny to see how Ursula's eyes are cross-eyed, which will not only make you laugh, but also distract you, and you'll die very easily. Neverland, which is being tormented by Captain Hook, wanting to send everyone to the plank and increasing his hatred for Peter Pan and his terrible phobia of the crocodile that tore off one of his hands. You know, that uncommon phobia, a predator tearing off another of your limbs. Truth be told, I feel for you, Captain Hook. We can also enter the 100-Acre Wood book, where its pages have been torn out and scattered across all the worlds, so Pooh doesn't even remember who he is. By progressing through mini-games, you can recover the lost memories of the inhabitants of the 100-Acre Wood. Destiny Islands, where our character lived before being consumed by darkness. Traverse Town, where all the people who have lost their world live in harmony. It will be your base planet, where Leon and his friends from other Final Fantasy games and Disney movies bring you up to date. Hollow Bastion, where Maleficent commands the other villains to complete her evil plans to conquer all the worlds and put old long years out of work. And I list all the worlds not because I want to spoil, but because, being a fusion of Disney and Final Fantasy, there's no level based on any game from the Squaresoft franchise, which I see as a very valuable missed opportunity to recreate some iconic plays from their games. But that was not the case. For this reason, I couldn't consider it a proper crossover, that and the fact that interaction with the RPG characters is minimal. Apart from talking to them and fighting some in the Colosseum, the interaction is nil. At the very least, they could have added at least one to your group, but no. The only one who helps is Sid, but his help is more focused on the Dirty Gimme ship. So they feel more like cameos than important parts of the story. And the same goes for summons. You can summon only Disney characters, but not even a miserable, polio-ridden chocobo from Final Fantasy to help you in your fights. When we summon, our party members disappear at that moment to make way for the summon. Of these, we can summon 6. Simba, who gives a roar. The more the bar is charged, the more powerful it is, making the heartless crap their pants in fright, lowering their HP. The Genie of the Lamp, who performs street magic tricks, stealing the enemy's weekly wages. Tinker Bell, who heals everyone. She is the only summon that does not make your team disappear. Also, if a character dies while she is on the field, they are revived instantly. Mushu, Mulan's starving dragon, who continuously shoots fire at the enemies, dealing little damage but steady, though you can only attack from a distance. Dumbo, who makes Sora small and gets on his hat, making you invulnerable and you attack enemies with water jets. Bambi, the most useful of all, because when summoned, it starts dropping little orbs to recover MP, and every hit you land on enemies makes them drop more orbs, and every now and then it will throw rare items that help you on your journey. The only problem with these is that many times you forget you can summon them, so you have to keep them in mind during boss fights. The only place where they cannot be used is in the Colosseum, for difficulty reasons. In each world, some character from the movies can be added to your party, replacing Goofy or Donald. You decide which one goes to the bench. I recommend you do so, because on many occasions they are very useful, as they have some special ability that makes your life easier. If you're worried that Donald or Goofy won't gain experience because they're resting, don't be. They will gain the same experience and level up, even if they're not on screen and there's no indication that they've gained any level. If they give you the option, swap them. No matter where you are, they're always a better option. In some worlds, you and your companions change their appearance to match the surroundings. That only happens in 2 worlds. Atlantica, where we become mere people, and Halloween Town, where we disguise ourselves as literary monsters. This change feels good to the appearance, but it remains something aesthetic. However, if you analyze it, if they had their normal form, you would stand out like a tourist in a city who takes photos even of the gum stuck under the benches. Some bosses are the villains from Disney movies, commanded by Maleficent. To that end, she uses the Heartless Army. But some bosses are large heartless, like the Trickmaster, whom you hit in the crotch, and when defeated, it gives you a ring called the Inferno Horn. How convenient. And in the shadows is Ansem, an entity that has taken over Riku's body, who coincidentally is another Sephiroth clone. Don't believe me. Light hair and eyes, and he talks pure nonsense. Only this is the Tam version. And as is customary in RPGs, there are some hidden optional bosses, Kurt Zisa and Phantom. They are not difficult, as long as you have the right level and know how to damage them. Some bosses are enormous in size, which is a visual delight, just seeing them move and attack. Also, they live up to their volume, as they are quite difficult at times. Out of my sight, Oogie Boogie, and to complete the Sephiroth triad, the original Sephiroth cannot be missing. He has undergone a few touch-ups. Let's see, we have Child Sephiroth, Tan Sephiroth, and Sephiroth with a clipped wing. What more could you ask for? He is the hardest boss of all, well, supposedly. As always, it depends on your level. The only thing that makes him very, very annoying is that he has an attack called Harvest of Sins that drains all your MP and leaves your HP at 1, so that you succumb to the slightest breath. But if it weren't for that attack, he'd be a little mama's boy. The game features some collectibles, such as the 99 Dalmatians scattered across the world after their world was destroyed, who are being sought by Pongo in Traverse Town, and some trio symbols that can only be activated when your original party is complete, and they have the ability to activate them. They will give you some useful reward. I recommend you go after the collectibles to make the game easier for you, as it can sometimes be merciless. There are things that make this game shine. One of them is the great adaptation of the movies. You know how few games can boast of being a proper adaptation of the film they're based on. This is one of them, and not just for one movie, but for 9. And the most impressive thing is that you rarely feel a change between worlds. Everything feels as if they coexist in harmony. And in fact, that's how it happens in the metaverse created by Disney. Also, it has many iconic moments from the movies that make them so memorable. They knew how to perfectly convey that feeling in the scenes and the personalities of the celebrities, which turned them into icons of generations. I suppose the people at Squaresoft also grew up with the movies. Some characters are very expressive, which adds realism, but not all. Some are cardboard and joke less, right, Leon? But you rarely feel that this detail stands out. It's usually overshadowed by everything else. And the story, although at first it looked a lot like what we've already been told, don't think I don't like it. We just already know it, gains strength and creates its own path, which gives a sense of originality. Another curious detail is that this time many Disney characters were voiced by the same people who brought them to life in the films, which is that extra effort that no one dislikes and that we all love. The only thing I really complain about is the camera, which seems to be guided by a drunk Lakitu, you're drunk, go home, and that your party members, when you need to make a precise jump, have the bad habit of standing where they're most in the way, causing you to miss the jump. But in the end, nothing that destroys the game. They're just things you can overlook. It's one of those games whose sequels you eagerly await, wanting to know which movies and characters they'll put in the next installments. It's incredible that two completely opposite metaverses can coexist in harmony. But if you analyze it, both have many things in common, which makes them fit almost perfectly. A great game for all RPG lovers, and for all those who enjoy Disney movies. If you are both, well, you're in Nirvana. I hope you liked the video. If so, get a like. If you know someone who might like it, share it on your social networks. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the channel. If you have any doubts, suggestions, or just want to comment something, don't hesitate to do so in the comment box. Also, if you're a big fan of this channel, activate the notification bell to be among the first to see the videos. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you next time. Bye.